Difficult Russia-Ukraine peace talks end without breakthrough. Talks between Russia, Ukraine and the US aimed at ending Moscow's war in Ukraine have concluded without a breakthrough. The trilateral meetings, held in Geneva, went on late on Tuesday but only lasted 2 hours on Wednesday. Although US envoy Steve Witkoff had expressed optimism over the talks, both the Russian and Ukrainian sides indicated they had been difficult. Moscow and Kiev remain far apart on key issues of territory and the terms of a potential ceasefire in the 4-year conflict. While conceding talks were challenging, Kremlin negotiator Vladimir Medinsky added that they had been businesslike and said another meeting would take place soon. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also described the negotiations as not easy due to the difference in the two sides' positions. Ukrainian negotiator Rustem Umerov cut a less downbeat tone, saying the discussions had been substantive and intensive and that while there had been progress, no details could be disclosed at this stage. This is complex work that requires alignment among all parties and sufficient time, Umerov said. Shortly before the end of the talks was announced, Zelensky accused Russia of trying to drag out negotiations that could already have reached the final stage. The Russian and Ukrainian delegations last met in US-brokered talks in Abu Dhabi in January, which led to the first prisoner exchange in several months. On Wednesday, Zelensky indicated that another swap might be forthcoming. US President Donald Trump, who spearheaded diplomatic efforts to end the war, has been signaling impatience with the deadlock between the two sides. On Monday, he said Ukraine had better come to the table, fast a sentiment Zelensky has since rejected, saying it was not fair that his country should be the one asked to compromise. 4 years on from the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, substantial distance still exists between Moscow's demands and what Kiev might consider a just peace. Russia has been pushing for full control of Ukraine's eastern Donbass, made up of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Kiev has long rejected this demand, which would mean relinquishing Ukrainian sovereign territory, including several heavily fortified cities and a long defensive line in the region of Donetsk. Many Ukrainians believe giving that territory up would leave the country vulnerable to another Russian invasion. On Tuesday, Zelensky told US media outlet Axios that any plan to hand over the Donbass would be rejected by Ukrainians if it were put to a referendum. Another sticking point in the talks is the status of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The power plant, Europe's largest, sits on the front line and has been under Russian control since March 2022. Ukraine wants Moscow to return it, and Zelensky has previously said Kiev could share control of the plant with the Americans, an arrangement Moscow is unlikely to agree to. It's been days since 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie disappeared in the middle of night from her home in Arizona. Robert Dorgan, who also went by the name Roberta Esposito, was found dead inside the Pawtucket Arena. But the sheriff tells the BBC he is confident they will find the missing woman, whether it takes days, months or worse. US Department of State says it supports the UK's decision to proceed with its agreement with Mauritius concerning the Chagos archipelago. The Ranger Road fire in the Oklahoma Panhandle has burned approximately 15,000 acres. Copyright 2026 BBC. The BBC is not responsible for the content of external sites. Read about our approach to external linking. You have reached the end of our in-depth report. For more deep dives into global affairs and breaking news updates, please subscribe to Neuron News Global and enable all notifications. Stay informed, stay ahead. See you in the next broadcast.